Welcome to my show. I am with a guest here. His name is Wren Valentino. Wren Valentino, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
All right, sir. We know you are a writer. You are also a voice actor. You are a film producer, and you're also an award-winning author. Can you walk us through your journey, how you made it, what inspired you to this journey, and how you are doing currently now, sir?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me too. It's really wonderful to be here. I appreciate it. Um, my journey began many years ago. My journey began when I had a teacher in second grade that recognized that I was very creative and that I was a storyteller. And that teacher really encouraged me to continue to write and tell stories. And when I was 13, I was very lucky to meet one of my favorite authors. I was a big reader. I read every book I could read as a young person. I grew up in libraries. So I had an opportunity to meet an author that I really liked and admired, and she really validated that what I was doing, and I wanted to be like her, and it was great to see an adult and a grown up doing something professionally that I wanted to do. So I pursued it. I published my first short story when I was 15, and then have continued to write since then. I got into film producing a few years ago. I started producing horror films. I love horror movies. I'm a big horror movie fan, and I met one of my favorite actresses was at a like a screening of a movie that she was in, and we talked afterwards, and she told me about a new film that was coming up that she was doing, and that they were looking for producer or producers, and I said, "Oh, that sounds great," and I got connected with them, and that became my first film as a producer. I've never really thought of myself as a producer before this. I've been a director, I've been screenwriter and other things, but never sort of wearing that producer hat. But it was a great fit for me. A lot of the films I produce from afar, so I'm not on set. Sometimes I am. It just depends on the project. But I love movies, and I love the fact that I get to help bring movies to people in some way, some great stories, whether they're scary or heartwarming or funny and goofy. But I just love being a part of that creative team that brings movies to so many people. And nowadays, movies are not just at the movie theater. You can watch them on your tablet or your computer or your phone or your TV. So I love that movies are so widely available now, people to be able to access and see in a really cool way. The voice acting, I've always done acting. I've been involved in acting on stage mostly since I was very young, since I was like 7 or 8. I've been on stage in some capacity for most of my life. And the voice acting, a really wonderful casting director I had posted something on, gosh, I think it was Facebook, that was a TikTok video that of me talking, and she said, you'd be really great for voice acting, and have you thought about this? And I had taken a couple of classes with a really, really wonderful instructor, and during the pandemic, when I had a lot of free time, and I had thought about it, but when a casting director reached out and said, let me submit you for some stuff and see what happens, and then she called me back. She's like, I've got auditions for you for 3 movies. And I was like, what? That's so exciting. And so I've been doing that now for about a year and a half. And I've been very, very lucky to have worked already on 14 feature films as a voice actor, and more are coming, which I'm very excited about. I love it. I do it from home. It's the best job because you sit down kind of like what you're doing right now, right? With headphones on and a microphone, and you read the script into the microphone, and they take it and they put it in a movie, and then you're watching the movie and you hear your voice, and it's a lot of fun. And I've got to play some really fun roles already through that. So But yeah, that's kind of the journey. I really have teachers and librarians and casting directors to thank for moving my journey forward in such a fun way.
All right, sir. I'm so happy for that. That's a very great achievement. And I also want to ask you several books, the books you've published. Can you just discuss a little bit about those books I was doing currently, sir?
Yes, thank you for asking about that. I love telling a good love story. Now, I love horror movies, but I love a good love story too. I don't think there's enough love in the world. So I like to be able to tell stories about ordinary people having extraordinary circumstances through love, right? A lot of times, I get to travel a lot. I love traveling, and I love meeting new people and finding out about new cultures and places and languages. I love learning new languages. So I kind of put all of that into my romance writing, and a lot, not all, but a lot of my stories will take place in an international setting other than America, Amsterdam, Greece, Italy, a lot of Italy. So I just enjoy a lot of those places, and I love writing about them. But I've written a lot of short stories. I've written a novel called Fast Beat, which is an urban dance theme romance. We have a second edition of that coming out later this year, which I'm very excited about. I'm working right now on a supernatural romance thriller, gothic supernatural romance thriller called Golden Grove, which I think will really, there's a little bit of ghost, a little bit of time traveling, a little bit of romance, and that doesn't come out till next year, which I'm very excited about. And then I have a brand new novelette out. A novelette, which is a fun word, is longer than a short story, but shorter than a novel. So um, that's called Miss Nothing. It's really funny. It's kind of heartbreaking. It was a lot of fun to write. Readers have really been liking it a lot, and I appreciate that. And then I also have a cozy mystery series about a parapsychologist named Stella Sabatino. The first one of those dropped. It came out last October, called Just a Little Haunted, and the second part of that series is coming out this fall as well. So I'm very excited about that. But I love the writing. It keeps me very busy. I have such wonderful readers that reach out to me through social media and talk about my stories and my books and share their feelings with me about them. So it's one of the best parts of the job is getting to talk to readers who are excited about something I'm working on. So it's a lovely thing.
All right, sir. And I'll also be waiting for the other, books that you're about to publish very soon, sir. I want to ask firstly, like, what inspired you to start writing romantic novels? What was the thing that first sparked your mind that I need to write romantic novels, sir?
That's a great question. I read and read a lot of romance growing up. I'm a huge fan of Danielle Steele. And just looking, people love love, and I think a lot of readers are looking for that magic spark between two people that brings them together, and that they have to sometimes, there's obstacles and conflict, and there's things in the way that are preventing them from being together or from realizing that they're meant for each other. And I love that journey as a reader. I love when two people meet and there's a connection and they make that decision of whether or not they're going to act on those feelings and somehow become connected, right? In a love thing. I love the feelings of love. I love writing about people falling in love and how it changes them. And it's just such an extraordinary, strong feeling, right? Love is just such a powerful feeling when you have desire or passion for another human being. It's such a wonderful thing. And I love capturing that. But again, I read a lot of romance myself, mostly contemporary romance, and just really enjoy it a lot. And also too, the majority of my readers are women, and they really enjoy so far they've really enjoyed the way that I tell a good love story. So I appreciate that in them for sure.
All right, sir. All right. So thank you very much, sir. I would also like to ask, can you share some tips for creating unbelievable romance tension in a story, sir?
Yes. So I kind of mentioned this a little bit. I think romantic tension or tension on the page or um if you will, like sort of that level of tension between characters really comes from a place of want. That two people want the same thing, but they don't know how to get that same thing, or they want opposite things and they don't know how to meet in the middle. I think romantic tension can come from character. I think it can come from situation. I think it can come from place. So if you look at all three, if you're writing romance specifically and you don't have that tension or you're trying to create that romantic tension on the page, I recommend looking at those three things, looking at your characters. Are they opposites? Is one of them closer to articulating their feelings than the other? Are they star-crossed lovers? Are they enemies that have become lovers? Or not necessarily lovers, but falling in love kind of thing. Um, and then looking at situation, what's at stake for these two people, right? Is it what's happening in the world around them that could impact their their possibility of becoming a relationship or whatever definition they are to each other. How can you use that as a writer to sort of ramp up those stakes so that they're that love doesn't come easy? I think when we write and if love comes too easy, there's no real challenge for the reader, right? They're not rooting for these two people to get together. And I'm not saying you need to do that with every book, obviously, but who doesn't love a good love story where they're fighting to be together and there's so many odds against them, right? And when you think about some of like the most classic big romance stories, the scene at the end of a film when they're running to each other and they finally get to be together is just so rewarding for an audience that's been with them the whole story. So I think about that. What's at stake? What do they have? What do they stand to lose by not being together? And it doesn't even have to be the whole book. You can do this scene by scene by scene. What I do when I write is every scene has to move the story forward. I don't, if there's a scene in my book or my short story that doesn't move the story forward or pose some sort of challenge to my characters, I take that scene right out of it because it's not serving me and it's not serving as a writer and it's not serving the reader. The other thing too is place. Location can create natural conflict, right? Um, are they two people that have met in the middle of a war that's happening? Are they two people that met at work and one's a boss and one's not, and they really can't be together because of their relationship? There's so many different variations of that, that they're off limits to you, so to speak, and it becomes this forbidden love kind of thing. But going back to place, I think setting is so important. There's naturally sort of romantic kind of settings when you think about it, a garden, a courtyard, the beach. But I like to kind of mix things up and like let's create a romance in the middle of an airplane factory, right? Which is not a romantic setting at all, but it creates this sort of juxtaposition like two people falling in love against this backdrop or background that you would not think of as being romantic. And as a writer, you use that to your advantage of like, oh, this is really unique and original. It's not formulaic. Most romance stories are fairly formulaic. I'll just say that, but I always try to like zig where they think I'm going to zag as a writer. I remember when I was working on Pumpkin Love Charm, which is one of my short stories. It's a Halloween themed short story, and I wanted the two characters to really struggle to articulate their feelings. So the story is about this woman who goes to sort of this like love potion shop and gets this charm, this pumpkin charm that's supposed to attract love to her, true love. And she doesn't believe in it. She thinks it's a prank, it's a joke, it's not real. And then she meets the man, but I didn't want it to be instant love, which is hard to do in a short story because you don't have a lot of space to tell the story in terms of words and the length of the story. But I there's a scene of that where they meet and sit and talk in a Chinese restaurant, like a storefront Chinese restaurant in the middle of a city, and it's an awkward conversation. It's not, and I did that on purpose because I wanted the readers to feel like they were watching two authentically real people falling in love. And when you meet somebody that you like, you're not always super articulate and you're embarrassed because you spill food on yourself or do I have food in my teeth, like all those things. And I added all those elements in to create tension, but also because I wanted to tell a really fun, truthful falling in love story. And that's one of my most popular short stories. And a lot of readers have commented and blog reviewers, book reviewers, story reviewers about that particular scene. And I'm so glad that I like listened to my intuition. I think that's really important too for writers to do. Listen to your intuition. You know what is best for your story. Cut those scenes out that don't move your story forward if you need to, but fight for those scenes that need to be in there that you feel like are so true to your character and create that romantic tension that you asked about. So I love creating romantic tension. I'm sure you can tell, but it's a lot of fun. It's one of the best parts of writing romance.
All right, sir. So glad. When you're writing, there are strategies you take. I want to ask, like, how do you develop your characters? When you're writing a retailable, or when writing a romantic, story, how do you develop that character, sir?
Um, That's such a great question. I think the characters come for me from different places. A lot of times they're multiple versions of people that I know or people that I see. I'm a big people watcher. When I'm sitting at the airport waiting for a plane, I'm looking at people. I'm wondering what their story is or creating it for them. So, I'm in the grocery store. I'm at a concert. I go to different places and I'm constantly watching people, listening to their conversations, watching and human interaction, how they interact with people, their nervous ticks, like all those things. I absorb all of that. And then when I go and sit down and start to write a story, before I write the story, I do a lot of prep. Some writers are different, but just for me, for my process, I fully flesh out my characters before I even put a word on page. So I know their name, I know what they have hidden underneath their bed that they don't want anybody to see. I know their favorite color. I know the fact that they don't like onions on their hamburgers. Like I will, and I have an exercise that I do for myself. I actually, when I teach writing, I share this exercise with writing students, but it's called the who exercise, as in who is your character? And it's just like 20 questions to ask yourself as the writer. Who is this person? How do they feel about religion? How do they feel about politics? How do they feel about their job? What is the regrets that they have? What are the regrets that they have? And so I think knowing all that stuff, mostly a lot of that stuff doesn't work its way into a romance story, but I know that information. So when I'm creating those scenes that are moving the story forward, I can double down on some of that character development that I've already created and infuse it into the story to make the character feel more truthful and believable and authentic. I think it's very difficult for all writers to create people that feel real because you're reading them on a page, right? With writing, movies and stage, which I write for, also are very different because you see the person, right? But when you're reading a book or a short story, you have to see them in your mind. And the way that you do that is by authors successfully what I call word painting, is that you described and said and created that person on page so that they feel like a real person, right? And that creates connection between character and reader. But I do a lot of prep work. I don't start a project until I feel like I really know who my characters are. I let my characters drive the story forward. I plot it out, and of course, and do all that kind of stuff. But I think you definitely have to know who your characters are. Even those supporting characters. I know a lot of people focus on the main characters, but those minor characters in an ensemble of characters in a book, every character that you meet in the book is somehow moving the story forward. And so their story is equally important too. And even if they were only in a couple of scenes, you still want to remember them when you're finished reading the book or the short story. And I think to create those memorable characters, um, readers really need to connect with them, and readers will connect with truth.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for that, sir. With all this romantic story you write, I know you will have, have some, relationship that you've learned a lot. I would like to ask, have you ever drawn, inspiration from real life relationship, for your stories?
Oh gosh, nobody's ever asked me that before. That's a great question. I actually don't draw very much from my own life. I have a wonderful life. I have no complaints, very happy life. But I don't draw very much from my own life. Um, I think it's because I'm living that life, and I would rather imagine or create other lives to write about. Not to say that I don't pull things from my life.
Generally, what advice can you just give to anybody who is into editing or, who is into novel writing and things like that, sir? Just in brief, sir.
Advice, absolutely. I'd be happy to share advice. I think couple things. One, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to tell everybody study your craft. It's really important to, I think if you want to be great at something, you look at the people who have been great before you and how they did that. How did they achieve that greatness? Both as a living artist, but also as a craftsperson. What did they put into their work that made their work stand the test of time? So study, I think study, take a writing class, join a writing group, read. To be a great writer, you have to be a great reader. And so I recommend, get a library card, go get library books and that sort of thing. The other thing too is I think it's really important for writers to remember why they're writing. I think it's really important to write because you love to write and that you love to tell stories, not to become wealthy or famous or any of those other things that could come along with writing. I think too many young writers kind of get into writing for maybe not the all of the best reasons. They want sort of that level of glory and achievement and accomplishment, but you got to do the work. You got to do the work. And I think the way to get through the work is to make sure you have a love for the work. Um, I think writing is a calling. I think it's a talent that you can culture and that you can foster, but it's got to be there, that initial love of telling stories. Finally, I think my last bit of advice is um, remember that there are stories that only you can tell, and those are the stories you should be telling. And tell the stories that scare you, that you're afraid to tell, that all those things, because I think then you're writing from a place of truth. Even if you're writing romance novels, you're still writing from a place of truth. So that was a lot of advice, but but there you go.
All right, sir. Lastly, there's a question I normally ask from the ancestors, from the forefathers. If there is something you would love to bring back to our current time today, what do you think that thing would be, sir?
Bring back to our current, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
From our forefathers, from our ancestors, if there is any
Oh,
love to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing would be, sir?
um, that's such a great question. I think some of the most remarkable moments in global history, not just American history, but global history, speak to a sense of community, of people coming together and putting aside their differences, all in the name of moving a cause forward, moving a community forward, moving a civilization forward, moving art forward. And I feel like that is getting lost. I feel like that we need to not focus on how different we are, but focus on the fact that we are all people. We all have similar emotions and fears and desires and concerns. We all love our families. We all love our significant others. And we have to get back to a place where we love each other. Now, I know that sounds very idealistic, right? How do you do that? But I think looking at history, like you're talking about, going back to our lineage, our ancestors. If we look at simpler times, for whatever you want to call that, or however you want to define that, there was a much bigger focus on people and your neighbors and community and your family and how you would come together to lift each other up and move each other forward or trouble get, I think about like people coming together in the aftermath of a catastrophe, which is awful, right? That we have to go through a tragedy in order for people to come together. But that spirit, I think, is what's moved so many monumental things and people and causes in history was people came together, put their differences aside for the greater good. And I feel like that's what needs to happen. We're all one big world, but we don't live like we're one big world, right? There's so many separations, and I just want everybody to be friends and get along.
Yes, sir.
But
Okay,
that's
all right,
very
sir. All right.
difficult to do sometimes.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for the time for coming back again to have this conversation. I want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate, and I want to say have a wonderful day and have a lovely day too, sir.
Thank you so much, you too. I've enjoyed talking to you so much. Keep in touch with me.
All right, sir. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.